What's up, Fire Dogs? Welcome to Coffee Break. This is episode number 6. Today I speak with Senior Master Sergeant David Webster. He's the Deputy Fire Chief at Cheyenne Mountain Air Force Station in Colorado. Today he shares with us his time as a military training instructor, and he gives us some advice on how we can be successful with military promotions. So without further ado, please welcome David Webster. So welcome, Dave. Thanks for joining. We got you on today to talk about promotions, awards, and developmental special duties. Before we get into that, can you introduce yourself real quick? Tell us where you work.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity for having me. I listen to you all the time, and I get a lot of value out of that. But yes, I'm Senior Master Sergeant David Webster. I've been in 17 years in the Air Force. I'm currently stationed at Cheyenne Mountain Air Force Station in Colorado Springs. Been doing firefighting for about 14 years, and also did MTI duty down at Lackland for about 4 years.
Cool. And we were just talking a little bit about Cheyenne Mountain, and I didn't know that there was active duty firefighters there.
Same thing for me too. Initially, after my DSD duty, I got an assignment to Peterson, and realized that military was integrated back into Cheyenne Mountain. So same thought process for me as well.
So talk a little bit about promotions. I mean, you've done pretty well for yourself. Senior Master Sergeant, 17 years total. It sounds like of service. I mean, I'd say that's pretty good pace. What kind of advice can you give to guys like me and our listeners, and how they can be successful in promotions?
A big majority of my mentorship time, especially with technical sergeants and master sergeants, they ask me a lot of times, what's the secret sauce? What did you do? And throughout my career, I was very fortunate to have good mentors, and I was all into the fire service. And I talk about that a lot. That's all I wanted to do, and that's all I focused in on. And this is just me personally. And then when I was selected for MTI duty and started going through that transition, I really just bought into being in the military. And at that point, I wasn't big into awards. I wasn't big into the promotions. It was just the daily grind, and eventually through persistence, I made it through the ranks. I didn't get below the zone, but I made staff sergeant on the first go around, technical sergeant the second. Had some deployments under my belt. A lot of different opportunities too through hard work, just building up that experience. Not really focusing on awards or anything like that. I wasn't very successful as far as that went. But as an NCO or supervisor, striving for those that I worked with, that was a big focus area for me. But I started really becoming successful as I transitioned, out of fire protection into MTI duty. Really kind of hit like a good role where I started climbing up the ladder. And it was very difficult too. A lot of good mentors. I couldn't break that mindset of not being a firefighter anymore and doing something else. But once I kind of bought into that, started focusing on that and starting taking care of my people, really, that's what helped me propel into Master Sergeant and Senior Master Sergeant. But when I went to MTI duty, I was a technical sergeant at the time. It took me about 3 or 4 times to make Master Sergeant. I really struggled. Even though I was pulling Assistant Chief of Ops duty, I mean, you name it. I did it, other than the Deputy Fire Chief or Fire Chief level, obviously. But
I guess looking back, what do you think you do different, if anything?
Well, looking back for promotions, I think just me mentoring, especially as a Master Sergeant, mentoring technical sergeants and staff sergeants and airmen too as well, about the process, all my lessons learned. And that's what I'm trying to do right now too, is provide any lessons learned so others can take it and run with it. But I guess it just depends on where you stand on a different, I guess, strategy on your career. A lot of technical sergeants, like I said earlier, and master sergeants, at their points in their career, they're in it for the long haul. And depending on your rank, it's going to take different things for you to get recognized and to work up that ladder. So a lot of different elements, but I think looking back, if I had to do it all over again, when I was a technical sergeant looking for promotions. I think focusing on, I used to hear this thing called, or this, not really scenario, but a master sergeant's like WD-40. They make everything work. And if I had the opportunity, really focusing on multiple teams or multiple sections making the mission happen instead of whatever division that I was in, whether that was operations or logistics or communications, but trying to make impacts with multiple sections and leading teams that way. And if you don't have that luxury, in or out the career field in fire protection, you know, making impacts with other airmen or other opportunities within the wing or outside the wing. As a master sergeant, if I had to do it all over again, focusing on outside of the wing,
Mhm.
different organizations, working with IMSC, AFCEC.
Yeah, reach out into the career field and do other things outside of your stovepipe.
Right. And always focusing too, if I had to tell myself, don't narrow in on just my career field that I'm doing the job in, reach out to other airmen too. Because from my experience and what I try to portray to the airmen that I lead, when we look at promotions and awards and things of that nature, if this is your career, I want to know that you could be a senior enlisted leader or an
Mhm.
enlisted leader, regardless of the career field that you're in.
Well, it's
What type
important
of,
to keep balance too, right?
oh, exactly.
Yeah, so you don't want to reach too far outside of what you're responsible for because then you'll lose sight of kind of what you're primarily responsible for. It's important to find that balance, and I think I've seen a few struggle with that in my personal experience, where maybe they reach too far outside of the fire department and abandon some of their responsibilities. So, and that's a hard balance to find. I think. I don't know what you think about that.
It is a tough balance. It depends on your goals and what you're looking for. Throughout your military career, I'm sure you've heard of stereotypes or individuals just striving for the next stripe, not really making impacts
Mhm.
and influence.
And it's
Um,
noticeable too.
yes, sir. But yes, a balance. I learned that too the hard way. If you go all out and burn yourself out, you're not doing anybody any good. And I went through a period like that too, down at basic military training, where that's all I focused in on, and it caused me more heartache, and I wasn't really as effective as I could have been. But thankfully, there they had a lot of coaching opportunities and leadership development that I really took to heart and applied. Taking a step back, being emotionally intelligent, thinking about everybody else and how I can make them better. And ultimately, that's what helped me make senior master sergeant, in my opinion, is everything that I put into the airmen that I led. They ultimately helped me get to the position that I'm in because of the confidence, the trust of my leadership team and me on my abilities to lead others, especially in that environment with different career fields, different mindsets, A-type personalities. It was a tough environment to lead in, but very exciting and rewarding.
And you're talking about your time as a TI, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. I also wanted to talk about the importance of not necessarily promoting too fast. That's something that I learned now as a master sergeant, that there's so much value in your time in and your experience because of the multitude of things that we come in contact with. I mean, it's great to make master sergeant or tech sergeant or senior master sergeant early. There's a lot of that's experience is very valuable. But I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
No, that's a great question or great thought because I think about this and I talk about it a lot when I'm doing my mentorship or coaching or just hanging around the firefighters or civil engineers. For me, I'm very thankful for the opportunity. I'm very blessed. Made senior master sergeant the first go around, but internally, I think about that a lot. Did I promote too early? Because it was a steep learning curve coming back into the career field from MTI duty. I missed a lot as a master sergeant because I made master sergeant and senior down at BMT. So I didn't have a lot of deployment experience setting up the teams other than me just going out as a staff sergeant or an airman, but actually being the leader, how to set up individuals to go down to Silver Flag. I never had that experience. A lot of things had changed in 4 years that I didn't have the opportunity to do before leaving the career field. Leading military and civilians as a department or flight chief. I mean, that's completely different than what I'm used to or what I was used to as well. So I find myself struggling at certain times, especially coming back into the career field.
Yeah, it's an important thing to recognize, and the fact that you recognize it is a good thing, and realizing that that you're going to put in more effort to learn what you should. I wanted to talk a little bit about some actionable items. So speaking maybe directly to some senior airmen or staff sergeant types, tech sergeant types, what are like 3 actionable things they can do right now to start getting ready to promote to the next rank?
That's a great question, Matt. So I'll start off with the senior airman. Um, if I was coaching someone or mentoring someone as a senior airman looking to make staff sergeant, obviously being that subject matter expert within their area of responsibility, striving to do the best that you can on calls, starting to lead small teams, your crew, and focusing on the emergencies in your programs, and leading things maybe, squadron, group level. That would be my advice to start off. Just trying to make impacts to a little at a time outside of just the fire department. As a staff sergeant going into technical sergeant, my advice to these individuals would be to become that technical expert, not only with your division, but also multiple divisions, how to run the fire department. When I think of a technical sergeant as someone that I can trust, knowing what they're doing on calls, on emergencies, having that good interpersonal experience, not just being a subject matter expert, maybe just operations, but also with budgets or compliance. Those are big things. And being able to have some influence to influence or motivate other individuals within your area of responsibility to do things outside of what they're comfortable with. That would be my
Yeah,
advice.
I think that's all great advice. And opportunity will come to you if you do well with what you're responsible for right now. So everybody wants something out of this life, and maybe they want something out of the career field and they want to progress, or maybe they want to go do something else outside. But what you're doing right now and doing it well is important for you to get what you want in the future, right? And then those opportunities will come to you. So if you don't know how to get after an opportunity outside of the fire department, maybe if you do good as a senior airman driver operator every single day consistently, your leadership, they're going to find you and give you those opportunities.
Exactly. It's almost like a chess match, being persistent, making some moves, building your credibility, building your reputation, and whatever your goals are, those opportunities will be considered. Just speaking for myself, when I'm trying to lead my airmen, I'm always building a glide path for these individuals, whether they're military or civilian, whatever their goals are, whatever their reputations are. I'm always striving for them to be better and also challenging them with things that they might not feel comfortable with. But lastly, if I was a technical sergeant striving for master sergeant, that's a huge jump. That's a huge jump and a remarkable one too. Just speaking from my experience, um, leading multiple teams, multiple sections, being that subject matter expert, making things happen, having that trust and that ability, not only just in fire protection, but also as a senior enlisted leader in the military. These are things that I would focus in on. Wing level events, getting my name out there, doing things that I'm not comfortable with, working with different individuals in different career fields, and making impacts.
Well, sir, thanks for joining. I appreciate all the advice, really great advice, and I appreciate the conversation. I know it's going to help some folks.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure.